Thank you for joining us today. This is part of our My Wealth video series. On the call today, we have Adam O'Brien, Dave Bradley, and Julian Klomochko from Bitcoin Well. I'll pass it over to my partner and lead investment advisor, Dave Townshend.
First of all, gentlemen, I'd like to congratulate you on the journey you've been on. For everyone attending here, the company has now achieved conditional listing requirement from the TMX Venture, and on Monday had a successful vote to go ahead with the transaction. We're in short order in the process of putting $7 million in trust, and in very short order, I think that with a little more diligence being done by the exchange, we're in a position for this company to become a public company. So on that grounds, we thought it was the right period of time to come back to all the investors, existing investors and new investors, and given the press in Edmonton, to reach out to management to sort of bring us up to steam on where the company is, where the company's going, and lay out the path forward. So with that, without any further ado, I'll introduce to you that don't know Adam O'Brien, the founder and driving force behind Bitcoin Well. Please, Mr. O'Brien, go ahead.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Dave. Appreciate it. It's been great getting to know you over the last few months. My name is Adam O'Brien. I'm the founder and CEO of Bitcoin Well. Founded Bitcoin Well, what was then Bitcoin Solutions, in 2013. I've had a pretty incredible journey through the Bitcoin space over the last nearly, I guess, close to a decade now. 8 years, and definitely excited to continue this growth and be on the path that we're on. Continually bringing financial sovereignty into the world, making it as easy as possible to buy and sell Bitcoin. I'll let Dave Bradley, our Chief Revenue Officer, introduce himself quickly, and then we can start diving through the deck.
Yeah, hi. Like Adam said, I'm Dave Bradley. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer. I have been in the Bitcoin space for 11 years now and got my fingers into just about everything that's possible, from blockchain to Bitcoin and everything in between, and really happy to be on this journey as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to start sharing my screen here. I believe you guys should be able to see this now. So we'll kind of start diving in, and along the way, I'm not sure how Canaccord has it structured, but if there are any questions at any point about the business, I think flip them into the chat, and then we'll probably get to those after the presentation. Is that right, Dave and Jeff? Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah,
Awesome.
it just works better, Adam. If you go through it, share the deck with us.
Yep.
Give us the plan on the go forward, and then we'll circle back, in lieu of everybody's time. We want to keep this, till about 20 to 12. Everybody gets a good idea of what, the go forward is.
Awesome. Okay. Well, Bitcoin Well, fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin. We'll touch on that and the reason why we'll touch on that in a few slides. But first couple of things are just our lawyers saying a quick hello, and then we'll touch quickly on the transaction that Dave was talking about. So we have entered into an agreement with Red River to be listed through a reverse takeover on the TSXV. Red River is going to obviously change its name to Bitcoin Well, and this will put Bitcoin Well as being the world's first publicly traded Bitcoin ATM company. So we're very, very excited to kind of be in that position and be moving through the qualifying transaction with that in mind. So basically, what do? We buy and sell Bitcoin. We have a network of over 120 Bitcoin ATMs scattered across Canada. And we do, alongside that, we do in-person transactions, web-based services, and then we most recently acquired a company to be able to provide a Bitcoin gift card, which should be coming here very quickly. Our model is non-custodial, and what this means is at no point in time are we holding consumer funds. So this alleviates a lot of the risk that typically corporations will see in Bitcoin custodians. We are a direct-to-consumer model. I joke sometimes that our Bitcoin ATMs are better called Bitcoin vending machines because they are a walk-up, insert your cash, and then receive Bitcoin type of machine. This type of platform is much, much safer for a customer to buy Bitcoin as they are receiving the asset within 8 seconds of purchase, which is why we call it the fastest and the safest way to buy Bitcoin. Moving through, giving a bit of history as to who we are. So founded in 2013, we were then Bitcoin Solutions. 2017, we had 15 Bitcoin ATMs in Western Canada. That is when, we saw a lot of the market kind of get into Bitcoin and understand what it was. We saw massive growth through that. And I felt like we left a lot of money on the table because we weren't necessarily as prepared as we could have been to take full advantage. So the next kind of year and a half were spent building up the core team and the core processes. And then in 2019, we made our first acquisition over in Eastern Canada. We were a Western Canadian shop with no presence in Eastern Canada. We made that first acquisition of 10 machines over in Eastern Canada, employed our processes, let the core team kind of go to work. And lo and behold, we quadrupled the revenues of that acquisition in just 9 months. That kind of told us that the process worked. And it was now time to just rinse and repeat. Move through 2020, we made 3 more acquisitions and identified that the roll-up was going to be easier if we had company stock to pay with, so to speak. And so that is when the RTO process started, was in 2020. 2020, you can kind of see some sales numbers along the way. 2020 closed with $52 million in sales, which we were quite proud of. And today, in 2021, we have 120 ATMs scattered across Canada. We're building a new shop right downtown Edmonton to be able to foster growth and innovation. And as Dave mentioned, we're very grateful to be raising $7 million through a brokered private placement with Canaccord concurrent to listing. So lots of excitement kind of going on from us. A bit about us and some of our numbers in the past. As noted, we're going to be the world's first publicly traded Bitcoin ATM company. 120 Bitcoin ATMs across Canada is our number today. We have 124 in circulation today. We have a purchase order that has just been filled, and our office is awfully crammed right now, full of hardware. So we're excited to be getting those wrapped and branded, and then pushing those out into the field. Our aggressive consolidation is that roll up. Employing our processes, our marketing, and our branding to existing revenue is going to be our way to quick and convenient and efficient growth. Our business model too, because we are non-custodial and because we hold Bitcoin, but we're in a constant circular motion with Bitcoin, buying and selling it constantly. We realize the benefits of Bitcoin without having direct exposure to that volatility. What this means is every time we sell Bitcoin, we repurchase it at that market value, and so we are kind of locking in our profit margins at time of sale, which is an excellent way for us to reduce our risk in terms of volatility and still post profits and benefit from people rushing in to the space, or in turn rushing out to the space. Our business model works really good because of Bitcoin's volatility, and I don't think that's going away anytime soon. And just a quick note about who we are as a management team. This is Canada's longest founder-operated Bitcoin ATM company. There is no one else in the country that has more experience operating Bitcoin ATMs than myself, and then bolstering on Dave's experience from his over a decade experience in the space. We have a management team that's ready to rock and roll and who knows the space very, very well. So ending off with some adjusted EBITDA last year of $3 million on $52 million of revenue. This is with $7.3 million in gross profit, and noting that 120 machines once again. Lastly, from my perspective, before I hand it over to Dave to talk a bit about revenues, I want to talk a bit about why we are a good business and how the business works. So obviously, we're a technology company focused heavily on how technology works and how we use technology to benefit our consumers. But we're still profitable and we're still posting transactions. We're a transactional revenue generating business today with a 14% gross profit margin, which is awesome. We are the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin because of our non-custodial model. The model that we have chosen to participate in yields a tremendous amount of trust because it's a direct to consumer model that doesn't equate in us having to handle customer funds like some of the custodial models that are out there. The ability to now roll up the industry, make it accretive, and do it on a non-cash basis is phenomenal. We found great success. There are some compliance regulations coming into play in a few weeks here that we have been well prepped and are continued to be prepped up for down the line, that smaller operators won't be able to fulfill. So the opportunity to be able to roll up this industry is quite significant right now. And then market leading, obviously using software. We've got a phenomenal technology partner that allows us to deploy hardware agnostic Bitcoin ATM software onto some legacy traditional ATMs. And so this again allows us to continue to grow and expand without the need for too much significant capex, which has been very, very helpful in expansion in this industry. So I will from here turn it over to Dave, where he will talk about revenues for a few, and then we'll dive through what the future plans are.
Yeah, so you can see this is my focus as the Chief Revenue Officer. What I focus on doing is driving these numbers here. As you can see, we've got a pretty consistent hockey stick style growth curve going on. We've got numbers that are much higher than both 2019 as well as very consistent growth throughout the year in 2020. This growth has happened both through a combination of some accretive acquisitions of some small competitors that we've picked up, as well as our own organic deployment of more machines. And this is following both those paths, a pace that we feel very confident that we can continue. We expect to see some really strong growth heading right through 2021. The big number here, I would say, is this $3 million adjusted EBITDA. With that number, we've subtracted our large one-time expenses, namely the cost of going public, going through this transaction, paying all of our lawyers and the good people at Canaccord. If we can jump to the next slide here. As Adam mentioned, what we do is buying and selling Bitcoin. So we're a retailer. We want to have as many channels as possible to be able to buy and sell Bitcoin. So our bread and butter is the ATMs that we've mentioned here, but we've got a couple other channels that we're expanding pretty rapidly. Most notably bill payments, where someone can pay basically any bill that you can pay through your online banking. They can pay on our website using Bitcoin. We're also selling gift cards on our website, so someone can come and buy an Amazon gift card or whatever gift card they want to do. And this is really increasing the usefulness of Bitcoin, which we think will help adoption in general, as well as our own customer base and ecosystem. And then something that we're really just starting to get into, that we've got a really exciting partnership that we're going to be trialing later in the year, is merchant services. So this is, large retailers want to take Bitcoin. They don't want the volatility, and so we buy the Bitcoins from them as their customers spend them in real time. And then here we can see this is the sort of parabolic growth of the ATM industry. So, as you can see, we've roughly tripled the number of Bitcoin ATMs in the world in the last year. Most of those are in North America, and we've kept pace with that. We're growing our fleet of ATMs at a pretty comparable rate to this global chart. And this is where we sit within the Canadian landscape. This is a really rapidly changing number. We are deploying both organically and through acquisitions. So are our competitors. One thing that we have a big advantage here is, and this is sort of anecdotal through conversations with our competitors, we're doing a lot more volume per machine. And that speaks to both our really great marketing and operations processes. And that goes back sort of to what Adam was mentioning, is like, we've just been doing this longer than anyone else, and we're starting to see the dividends of that. And that's reflected in those revenues.
Awesome.
I'll take it back to Adam here.
Thanks, Dave. So this is kind of where we're going and how we're going there. You'll notice on this last slide here, the gap between the largest operator in Canada and the 10th largest operator in Canada, from 404 machines to 31 machines. This gap is kind of what gives us the ability to continually making these accretive acquisitions. There are a host of ATMs operating less than 31 machines that no longer are going to have incredible profits. And the reason for that is because of the strict compliance measures coming into place June 1st. To meet these requirements, you're going to have a team of people ensuring compliance on each and every transaction, coupled with some incredible compliance policies built by professionals. all of which turned this side hustle of owning a couple of Bitcoin ATMs into a real business. And lots of our competitors that don't operate as many Bitcoin ATMs as we do won't be able to kind of make that jump. And so they'll be looking for exits, and we'll be there ready to give them exits and making these accretive acquisitions and rolling them in and seeing the economies of scale of our corporate infrastructure right now. So obviously, revenue growth, accretive acquisitions is top of mind there. Continuous ATM deployment. This is through organic growth, setting up and making that CapEx investment into more hardware, continually building on the model that we've done for the last 8 years. Online and in-person services is kind of where a lot of our focus has moved to. As we continually develop ways to make Bitcoin usable that Dave was talking about, we're seeing a lot more traction in that way. Now that we have the onboarding and offboarding ramp figured out for people getting into and then getting out of Bitcoin, that entire middle piece of usability is virtually up for grabs. And so we have the ability now to look through and understand what users want to do with their Bitcoin and then give that to them. In the same way, I think Apple had the ability to tell people that they wanted a glass iPhone. We're able to do that now with money. We have a very, very apparent Goldilocks window where we can kind of look at a user and how they interact with their money today and incorporate Bitcoin into that, make it infinitely cheaper and infinitely better for the end user, which we're very excited to be doing. And then, of course, that ties into the software development aspect of things. This is our team. You see myself and Dave sandwiched with Mandy Johnson, our CFO, in the middle there. And then we have our board of directors. Most notably, we stood this board of directors up almost a year ago, where we had 5 board members consisting of 3 independents and Dave and myself. Most recently, we've added Alice Reimer and Michelle McCarthy to the board, which we are very excited about to have a wide range of expertise, both in public markets and in technology companies from those 2 individuals. This is a bit of hammering home what we are and why we have been successful to date, what we're going to continue doubling down on in the future. That's security, trust, and integrity. Being a direct-to-consumer model, I cannot stress enough how important that is in this industry. Bitcoin enables people to be able to use money the way they want to use it without the permissions of a network, so to speak. And we give them the ability to buy and sell Bitcoin directly without the need for that third party, which speeds up the process and makes it better for the consumer. And then lastly, just touching on the compliance coming into play. We've been FinTrack registered since 2019. We were very, very excited to see the MSB, the money service business licenses, come out, as this has been a big pain point for us trying to grow the business within the corporate infrastructure of our country. And so now that we have that, this is what continues to give us success in the industry. Being well prepared for that corporate infrastructure and being well prepared for these compliance regulations has been continually setting us apart from our competition. And then lastly, just kind of finishing off, who we are. We're a transactional focused organization with positive adjusted EBITDA, selling Bitcoin in the fastest and safest way possible with a very, very strong accretive growth strategy. And we're continually market leading in giving consumers and customers of our organization what they need in a Bitcoin transaction. And here's how you contact us. Moving through the slide, and I believe you'll get a slide sent out from the group. We do have an appendix here with a bunch of other information as well. I won't waste everyone's time and go through it, but as you can see, it is cap tables, some benefits of Bitcoin, and continued information surrounding Bitcoin. So I will leave the contacts up there and then, push it back to Mr. Townshend.
Very good, Adam. The first question that has come out since your interview and endorsement from the mayor of Edmonton is, what are you going to do with 35,000 square feet? What are you doing, that is going to take 35,000 square feet? This is a big footprint, and you must have a big plan to fill that footprint. So if you can elaborate on that, we'd appreciate it.
We've seen being on the cutting edge of things means that there are some pain points along the way. And the response to those pain points has been wait for it or build it ourselves. And right now we are in a position where we have the ability and soon we'll have the funding behind us to be able to continually build products that we need to make Bitcoin as accessible as possible. And so the space will be used, primarily to making Bitcoin accessible, done through a number of different avenues, whether it be deployments of ATMs, technological advancements, and as we expand, as we expand through our growth plan of Canadian growth, and then moving through the motions of international growth and global growth, are going to continually be bolstering the corporation, which is going to be headquartered here in Edmonton.
The mayor has been a very strong supporter of your action. The next question that comes to mind that we've had a number of people ask us is, what percentage of your business is Bitcoin? And what percentage is other cryptocurrencies, especially since we've seen such a move in Ethereum?
Yeah, Ethereum has definitely increased in value, which was to be expected as Ethereum's value has moved. Well over 80% of our business continues to be Bitcoin. We've elected to maintain focus on Bitcoin and have doubled down on that in this time, which has proved to be quite successful, as we see a lot of other projects kind of start and fail. And that's most noted, I think, by the incredible lawsuit brought up in the Ripple XRP kind of, I'll call it a scandal for lack of a better terms, where organizations that choose to participate in that network are now at risk and have some liability. And so right now we sell Bitcoin and Ethereum. We're of course looking at projects that make sense to be buying and selling, but well over 80% of our revenues come from Bitcoin.
Next on that front, Adam. So at this point in time, you're basically a Western Canadian corporation, and most of your revenue derived from machines in Western Canada. What's it going to look like as you roll out your business plan? What's it going to look like in 6 months? What's it going to look like in a year? Where are you going first?
Yeah, great question. You're absolutely right. The majority of our ATMs are in Western Canada. We do, though, have a healthy minority over into Eastern Canada. And so now that we have that, on Tuesday we had a director of sales and business development start, and her job and her focus is going to be creating those national and soon to be global partnerships to be able to continually expand with ease across the water, across the pond, and also across the country. And so having corporate services set up in Edmonton, we've been operating a national company for the last 24 months, and we've done all of that out of the Edmonton HQ. We think that the economies of scale are significant, and our ability to increase Edmonton's headquarters while increasing the network across the country is going to be the most efficient way to do so.
Next, and I think is, whether I'm right or not is the question I'm going to get I'd like an answer to, and that is foreign remittance. Foreign remittance to me is it not low-hanging fruit for a company like you? Especially Mexico. We've made an introduction to you through people we have in Mexico. They're very interested. The Philippines, Indonesia, the idea to have an app that people can, interact with their own relatives in a foreign country directly, to me would think, where is that on your development plan?
Great question. International remittance is right now notably the holy grail of money. Right now, if you want to move money internationally, it goes through roughly 16 middlemen, each of them taking a cut. We figure once we properly solve the onboarding and offboarding ramp in multiple different countries, we'll be able to cut about 9 of those middlemen out, which is quite significant, especially when those fees all go somewhere, either to the consumer or to the person cutting out those 9 middlemen. And so definitely on our roadmap, I think that what we have to do first is get people using a system that that allows the onboarding and offboarding into the industry. And that's where our focus is. Our focus is right now on creating the ability to easily buy and sell Bitcoin. Once you can easily buy and sell Bitcoin, sending Bitcoin is the easy part. And so eventually we foresee a future where you'll be able to use your money in the same way you use an RBC or a BMO app right now. You'll be able to use your money and in the same way you do today, but it'll be Bitcoin on the back end rather than a Swift layer, rather than an Interac layer on the back end. We think Bitcoin can eventually replace that.
Will you do dollars to dollars? If someone says, I want to send dollars to Mexico, can you send dollars to Mexico?
Yeah, absolutely. So the workflow there is really beautiful in my opinion. So assuming you have onboarding and offboarding solved in Canada and onboarding and offboarding solved in Mexico, the workflow is simply, let's say you want to send 100 Canadian dollars equivalent down to Mexico. It would be a quick conversion of Canadian to pesos, understanding how many pesos needs to happen kind of on this side, and then withdrawing the Canadian dollar amount from the bank, changing it into Bitcoin, having that Bitcoin transferred to the other user's wallet, and then automatically selling that Bitcoin back into pesos or back into fiat into pesos, and then depositing it straight into the Mexican bank account. All of that can happen kind of in real time, and those transfers can begin and end from one bank into another. And so using Bitcoin as the intermediary, setting up that network of onboarding, offboarding ramps is the most important part to that. But once that's solved, it's just continually adding new countries to the list of people that we can facilitate that network to.
We'll go to a few outside questions here now. The first one being, what is the roadmap for expanding asset token offerings going forward? Do you see yourselves being in the token business?
Not immediately. I think that there's certainly, I think, a use case to have tokens in the world. I think that I'd be lying if I said that we weren't looking at or investigating what tokenizing certain debt or certain specific finance needs might be. We don't right now look at like NFTs or anything. We're in the business of selling sound money, and I think that that's the most important thing to be selling to people right now. I think that there's definitely a market for those alternative kind of tokens and NFT style projects. I think that the risk there is quite significant, and we saw an incredible ICO, initial coin offering, craze in 2017. The large majority, and I'd like to say all, but there was probably at least one outlier that I haven't heard of, but the large majority were scams, blatant scams. And so we have no desire to participate in that market. And until we see a project that we think covers our strict due diligence and what we like to see from projects, we're probably a little ways away from participating in that market.
Yeah, if I can add to that too, one thing that's nice about our business model, because we're non-custodial, that keeps us on side with the securities regulators, meaning that they don't consider our business to be a dealer in securities. And so we don't have any registration requirements. If we started taking custody of customers' Bitcoins, or if we started selling a bunch of different tokens, many of which, or maybe all of which, could be considered securities, then it would drastically change our business and our regulatory requirements. So that's not.
Dave,
really
is that the biggest requirement? Is that the biggest difference in doing business in America?
That is a big difference. Both countries have securities laws that are quite similar. One thing that's a big difference in the U.S. though is the anti-money laundering laws. Whereas we have a national regulator, FinTrack, that regulates us right now. It's a bit of a regulatory burden, but it's not too bad for an organization of our size to handle. In the U.S. though, they have state by state regulatory laws, and so it can get to be a real mess. And some of those laws are also based on residency. So if you're operating a Bitcoin ATM in Montana and someone from New York comes and uses your ATM, you're now subject to the laws of New York. And so it can be a big mess. And for that reason, the US is not super high on our list of potential expansion targets. And on top of that, the vast majority of all the Bitcoin ATMs in the world are already in the US. So we'll be looking at lower hanging fruit when it comes time to look at international.
Interesting. Next comes 2 questions when I'm going to combine them both. The first one is, what is your average size transaction? And how do you compare to Mogo on price? Mogo seems to be, here's the question. Mogo can't give the best price versus real time. How do you compare? How are you different than Mogo? And on your own size, what's your average? That's a great question. What's the average guy walk up to the machine and buy?
So our average transaction size has grown. In 2019, it was $672. Today, it's $1,020. So it's almost doubled in the last couple of years. I think that's partially because people buying Bitcoin want to get more Bitcoin. I think too, because as Bitcoin continues to gain mainstream or go mainstream, people are more and more comfortable buying more and more Bitcoin. Your note about Mogo is an excellent question. We are vastly different from Mogo, Wealthsimple, PayPal. Those organizations are strictly custodial and don't actually sell Bitcoin. They sell derivatives of Bitcoin. So you don't actually get a Bitcoin that you can self-custody and transfer anywhere you like. You get price exposure to Bitcoin. That's just very, very different. We are the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin. We are not the cheapest. And so our business model has that being in a niche clientele that we figured out how to talk to and that we figured out how to target. And I think that we're doing that quite well. Eventually, down the line, we do plan on being a lot having the ability to compete on price. And where that comes in is that Bitcoin usability piece. We foresee, like I said, a future where a banking app can be replaced by a Bitcoin wallet. And that will come with services and abilities to spend Bitcoin right from within that application. And so taking a cut of all those services, if we're the ones introducing those services, that's how we're going to be able to compete on price and continually bolster revenues on that side. But the difference it should be noted. It's very, very, very different from buying Bitcoin on Mogo, simply because you're buying a derivative of Bitcoin on Mogo. You're not actually buying Bitcoin.
So it leads to another question about, first, can we get, we have a couple of questions. Can you put the cap table back up on the screen, please? Secondly, okay, for my own edification here, Mogo effectively, from what you're saying to me, is trading in a security.
Yeah, that's correct.
They're going to end up being regulated because they're giving you a security represented by an underlying asset.
That's correct. Yeah,
it's a derivative. So they're trading in derivatives, really. Yeah,
that's correct. Mogo,
yeah.
I believe they're already security registered, so I like the path for them should be quite simple. But the key to Bitcoin, like Bitcoin's hot right now because it's increased in value 3x over the last 18 months. That's fantastic. But like the key to Bitcoin is having the ability then to take that Bitcoin and self-custody and understand what you can do with that. That's, I think, kind of the biggest underlying value that society hasn't realized yet. And as we move down the timeline, I think that society will continually realize that that's the greatest benefit. And its deflationary properties coupled with its use and its ease of use will make those derivatives platform have to change course.
Very interesting. 2 more I'm just going to put together here. Is there an app being put together for your phone? And secondly, what are your terminals cost delivered in place?
So landed and branded, our machines are roughly $20,000. That takes into the account, like they're obviously not purchased in Canada. So there's a bunch of Forex in that. Shipping is a nightmare right now. Branding them. You all know the stories about how logistics of all that works. So $20,000 landed and branded. As far as, what was the other question? Sorry, it just blanked.
Right. Is there an app being developed
the app, yes.
for the phone?
So part of the acquisition of the gift card platform was the application of an app called Rise Wallet. Rise Wallet is a non-custodial Bitcoin wallet. Then that's how you redeem the gift card. So the play there is to use the gift card as an onboarding ramp into the application. And then the secondary play to that is integrating all of our online services directly into that app. And so you can go down right now, you can download the Rise Wallet app onto your phone. It's a non-custodial Bitcoin wallet. You can use it exactly as you would use any Bitcoin wallet. Notably, this is a mobile wallet. Depending on how Bitcoin savvy you are, a mobile wallet is primarily intended to be like cash in your pocket type of idea. You definitely don't want to keep your life savings on a mobile wallet. I would say that about any mobile wallet, to be clear. And so now that we have that onboarding ramp through the gift card possible, striking up gift card partnerships is top of mind, and then also integrating the usability features of Bitcoin that integrate nicely into the wallet is kind of the next step.
So one sort of outside of that, if you have have you broken down and segmented your revenue as people online and people at the ATM? How much of it is ATM traffic and how much of it is people online buying from?
Our in-person services, that's both ATM and through our shop in Edmonton, soon to be Calgary as well, getting a white glove, high transaction volume transactions. That aspect of the business, the in-person service, accounts for over 95% of our revenues today. We do foresee that, and we are planning and pushing for, while growing that side of the business, really exponentially growing the online side of the business to eventually 50-50 by 2023 is our target.
Interesting. So it's always, in your analysis of weaknesses and strengths, what goes wrong here? What goes wrong? What do you guys think that, what's the one that keeps you up at night to say, this could derail my entire rollout?
Yeah, great question. I think corporate America does not take too kindly to Bitcoin, and so we've seen this with some. I think that getting this RTO done is going to be a big feat, just because of, and we're on the doorstep now, which is great. But Dave, as you know, it's been quite a road to get here with the requests and the due diligence that we've had to endure and go through. I think second from that, it's going to be ensuring that we have bolstered relationships in corporate land, banking, and such. And I think that we've done a great job of setting up the partnerships to date. But certainly, we all know that corporate and corporations are a little bit on the fence about Bitcoin, and so this is notably an up and coming industry, and so I think that that's kind of where our struggle and challenge has been thus far. And then I think too, lastly, it's just going to be an ever changing compliance and regulatory environment. Personally, I think we're well set up for that, but I know that, and I note that as things continue to change in the country, we're going to need to adapt and have the ability to adapt. We've done that so far in the past, but certainly going to keep that front of mind for the future. Dave, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I think from a business standpoint, we certainly have our eye on new competitors coming into the market. So things like Mogo and PayPal and whatnot, they are a way for people to get exposure to the price of Bitcoin, which is a lot of what some people want. There's a risk at some point that we have to compete with RBC or someone like that directly actually selling Bitcoin. That's something we have in mind, but I think it's a long ways off. And it seems a little far-fetched at the moment because they don't seem to like Bitcoin very much at all.
Well, there's definitely going to be competition. The question is, how big can you get this, right? And how quickly? So now, from my own, there was a question here too. Of the money here, you're going to net over $6 million on the financing, God willing that we get the thing across the goal line, which looks increasingly likely. And your cash on hand would be how much today, Adam?
Yeah, so we have we have roughly $3 million cash on hand today, I believe. And then adding the 6 and change to that, it's going to put us up near the $10 million cash position. We plan on bolstering working capital, which is a fancy accounting term for buying more Bitcoin. And then obviously continuing these expansions. We do foresee that, company stock alone won't be enough to entice some operators that we want to go after. And so earmarking some for the acquisition of certain competitors is going to be part of that use of cash. And then I think lastly is continually making investment into the technology sector. We've done a phenomenal job, I think, identifying up and coming startups and having the ability that complement our business. Most notably is a compliance startup in Calgary that we've had the pleasure of investing in and kind of having some ability to look at their roadmap and help steer their roadmap for something that benefits us. So having the ability to do that with other technology companies is going to be advantageous as we build out that usability piece to Bitcoin and the Rise wallet.
Interesting. How much of it is going to be used in the build out of the office space? Roughly?
Yeah, we're so the office space, we're planning on putting $4 million into the office to build out that space and make sure that we can grow into it. I certainly think that we'll be able to finance a large chunk of it with leasing and such. So we have only 2.5 necessary to outlay today, but that's an ever-changing number as you can imagine, and definitely hoping to finance what's necessary in the office there.
Yeah, and
Very interesting.
I should add to that a little bit. We've got a deal that's, in the market that we're in with COVID and the economy where it's at, we've got a really sort of sweetheart deal on the rent. And so however we pay for this, financing will amortize over whatever period of time, that's going to be all we're paying in terms of rent. So we've got a basically free rent, and we're paying just op costs, and then we're doing our own tenant improvements. So it's a pretty sweet deal, I think.
That's very interesting. So I think we've answered most of the questions. Adam, is there anything you'd like to close with? Where's the biggest upside in this company, Adam?
I think the upside comes in this company gives the investor the ability to have exposure to the upsides of Bitcoin and still have a transactional business doing transactions in a downward market. Bitcoin is volatile. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. We have users rushing in when the price goes up and rushing out when the price goes down. Our society is very used to buying high and selling low, unfortunately. And we take transactional fees on both sides. And so because of that, I think that we're well positioned to take advantage in any Bitcoin market. And I would encourage you to look at our website, bitcoinwell.com, follow us on Twitter @thebitcoinwell, and look forward to trading day. Hopefully, counting in weeks and not months.
I think that we're, you never like to say, but Jeff Gurman's on the line. So Jeff has marshaled this through, and I have great degree of confidence in Jeff and you guys and your lawyers. And we have, we're ready to roll. David, I asked you the same question. You left a very successful business to come here. Right? Where's the upside? Where do you think the upside is here?
I think the long-term upside is really in building an ecosystem. So like Adam mentioned, we've got really good, solid foundation of on and off ramps. And if we can build all the ways that people will use Bitcoin in the middle and keep them all in one consistent ecosystem within our own app, on our own website, in our machines, we can create a situation where they have no reason to go anywhere else, whether it comes to buying or selling Bitcoin or using Bitcoin. And like you were mentioning with the international remittance, eventually we can build services on top of that the user may not even know that Bitcoin is the back end.
Very interesting. Is there anybody else with anything further? Jeff or Jeff Gurman or Raheem, anybody else? Okay, with that, gentlemen, I think I've covered most of the questions that are asked. If not, we're going to fire them off to you.
Please do.
But again, we're very excited to get going here. I think it's, it may not be the as buoyant an equity market, but again, no one's buying this for what happens next week. We're buying this to see what you build. And I think the whole ecosystem idea is, where you really want to be and getting these people onboarded. So on that, again, thank you all very much for your time and effort. And as I said, if there's some other questions, we will send them to you by email. And where are you opening in Calgary, just out of interest?
It's like Beltline, what you would call the design district, I guess, down on 11th Avenue.
Cool.
And so those over the counter, what we call OTC internally, shops are where you book an appointment, you come in, you get set up with a Bitcoin wallet. We help show you how to keep it secure. And we've seen enormous success in people curious about Bitcoin, but have no idea and petrified of the technical requirements. And so we make it as easy as possible for someone to come in and spend as much money as they'd like.
Beautiful. One more I'll ask you. What's the impact of COVID on your business?
We have seen, most notably in Ontario, some of the lockdowns, the severe lockdowns affecting our business. I think that was more than made up for, though, by, it showcased why Bitcoin exists. And I think that the money printing that's happening right now pushes Bitcoin, I think, further ahead in terms of its need in our world. And people understand, I think, the need for its economic properties. And we're a shop that sells Bitcoin. So we definitely benefit from that, from that side of things.
Well, that's all great. Gentlemen, I wish you all the best here, and I think it's going to be a very interesting next couple of years for you. We're just very excited. We're just very excited that you chose Canaccord and were involved. So from us, thank you very much, and we'll be in touch very soon, and hopefully we'll be ringing that bell here before too long.
That would sound awesome. Thanks a bunch, Dave and company, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Let us know if you need anything else.
Thank you very much, guys. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye-bye.